How's it going, everyone? So today I'm going to show you 10 hidden features and maintenance items for the BMW E90. So just to clarify, this would be for E90, E91, E92, and E93. Okay, so the very first one is the key. A lot of people, most BMW owners don't know this. A lot of people don't. There is a hidden key in the key. And you squeeze the top of it, you pull it out, and there is a small hidden key within the key. Now this is going to serve a couple different functions here. We're going to go ahead and show you how to use that key. Okay, so obviously you could put this in the driver's door and unlock the door. Now you could also put this in the trunk. There is a small hidden key hole right here that this key actually goes up in, just like that, right below the emblem. Also, to add to that, there is also a trunk lock switch in the glove box. Most of these are supposed to have another key that's in the glove box. This one is missing that key. Number two, the fuse boxes. There is a fuse box in the glove box behind this guy. If I can get it, my hand will bend that way. And you can see down behind here, maybe not on this camera, the fuse box is hidden way back in here, and that is your main fuse box for the entire car. Other features will be this little card here that pulls out. That diagram opens up. That tells you the location of all the fuses and relays in that box. There's also fuses in the ECU box, which is under the hood, under this passenger cover. To get to that, you will have to remove the whole cowl. There's fuses, I believe on this one is for the four-wheel drive, and various other single fuses and relays. Next up is going to be the cabin air filter. The cabin air filter sets up here. It is held in by 4 screws. There's a screw there, a screw there, a screw there, and a screw there. This then pops out and exposes the cabin air filter. You need to keep an eye on that, change it periodically. If it starts looking dirty, go ahead and change that. They are extremely cheap. Companies like FPC Euro even has a lifetime guarantee, so they give you free filters every so often. Okay, next up is the engine air filter, which is in this housing right here. This is actually a 2-part filter. So how you could quickly check it is you could pull these snaps out here and these bolts here, there, and there. You could actually remove this. You could look down in at the backside of the filter by pulling this off. To replace this filter, you will have to remove this whole box. There's 2 bolts here. I can't remember if there's one underneath or not. I don't think there was. The whole thing comes out, and you can see it has a series of bolts that sandwiches that together. You will have to remove that. It does sound a lot worse than what you think. It actually is pretty easy. The second pre-charge filter is attached to the upper housing, and that is a secondary charge. To replace that, you do have to replace this upper. A lot of people will rip that out and discard it, or even put a cold air intake on it, something they could wash the filter out and clean it without having to buy a new one. Next up, we have power steering fluid. I would say on these, like to change these every 30-40,000 miles, and how this setup is a little different than the older stuff. This actually takes the BMW power steering fluid, and this guy here unscrews. It has 2 little lines on the dipstick. You can see there, the top line is full, the bottom line is low. Somewhere between those 2 lines is fine. Look down in there. Now, this whole canister is replaceable. This actually has a filter in the bottom of the canister. The correct way to change this would be to jack up the car, get underneath the car, follow the line down to where it goes into the pump, break it loose at the lowest point. That'll drain the fluid. Then you could easily replace this without having a big mess on your hands. Also, whenever you do this, these factory clamps, I usually take a pair of cutters, grab it, and I'll twist it and discard of that and use a regular hose clamp. That's also a very common failure point. that BMW has neglected to fix over the years. Next up is the transmission fluid. As you notice on the newer BMWs, pretty much any BMW, there's no dipstick. There's no transmission fluid dipstick at all. This doesn't even have an oil dipstick. We'll get into that later on. The transmission fluid in these cars is supposed to be a lifetime fluid. It doesn't matter if you have the ZF box or if you have the GM box. It doesn't make any difference. It has to be changed. If not, the transmission will go out, no doubt. And usually we use the Valvoline Max Life synthetic import stuff. We never have a problem with that. The fluid and filter change. The filters on any of these are $22 to $40 at your local parts store. Filter change, the fluid change is going to cost you about $50 if you do it yourself. Depends on which model. It could cost upwards of $60 to $65. And these are the adaptive transmissions, so it is possible if it's shifting odd, you will have to do a reset, which we'll go into right now. Okay, so to do the transmission adaptive reset, you will put the key in the ignition, push it in, touch that once, turn down the radio so you don't get copyright strike. And once you're at this point, we'll turn down the fan. You're going to hold the accelerator pedal to the floor for 1 minute. That will reset adaptive values for the transmission. Okay, so next up is going to be the sunroof reset. The sunroof controls are right here. A lot of times the sunroofs get stuck, they have been used for a while. So we're going to turn the key on again. To reset the sunroof is very simple. We're going to push in and we're going to hold in. Open the shade up so you can see. We're going to hold in until the sunroof runs its cycle. Should be about 30 seconds if I remember right. Alright, you're going to hear it run a cycle. And keep holding the button until it does its whole little thing here. That is going to reset and recalibrate the sunroof. There it is, it's done. Okay, so next up is going to be service mode. This mode is used for oil change reset, brake pad reset, service reset. There's a little button down in the corner. We're just going to hold down on it and watch the center display. You're going to see a triangle pop up. So we'll just hold it down. There it is. Keep holding it. And now we're in service mode. We have the oil reset right there. And we just use our blinker switch to toggle up and down. And then use the BC as an enter button. And we have our coolant, all of our service stuff. You can set the service date. Just all kinds of stuff. Brake pad, front and rear, and of course to reset you just hit the BC button, and there it says it's already been reset. But a lot of times you have to hold it down and it'll go through and reset it. And your spark plugs and all that stuff. Now don't get this confused with checking your oil. This is not check your oil. This is only the service mode. So this is what the dealership will go into to reset stuff and set service parameters. Now your oil check is going to be over here. So with the car running, they recommend the car is running up to temperature, setting on level ground. We're just going to click up on that, and you could toggle through. The second one up is oil. We'll go ahead and click that, and the car is not warm yet, so it's going to take a little bit to check that. And you want it to be in between the minimum and the max, not over it, of course. I think you can see that too clearly or not. But this car usually is just a little click under max. That is 7 quarts of oil. Okay, and last on the list is also the most important on the list. What every BMW owner should be doing, no matter what the excuse, you should be doing this, is checking the coolant. The coolant bottle is right here. All the E90s have it on the passenger or on the passenger fender well. Without being said, the most important, obviously, is don't open it when it's hot. And we're going to go and open it up. We're going to take a look, and I'll show you the fill procedure on these. Whenever you run it too low, or if you have to replace something, you will need to do the fill procedure. These aren't like the old cars where you could just bleed it out and everything's good. Unscrew it. First of all, there's a couple things here. It has a float like the older cars, so you don't want to fill this to the very top. On these, you want to fill it so the float's up, but not up too high. Now, when you fill it, if you have it emptied, you can fill it all up to the top, because obviously it's going to suck it down. So you can see it's about 1.5 inches below the top of the jug. So while you're checking this, it's always a good idea to look at the cap. We just had one of these that were bad. Here's the cap. Make sure both the O-rings on top are in there. Make sure this plastic ledge on the top is all intact. If the plastic ledge is popping up or missing, you need to replace the cap. It will leak out of the cap will not pressurize correctly. Now, to actual fill it, how I do it is you'll remove the bleeder screw here with the car engine off, always with the engine off. If you remove this with the engine running, it'll geyser out and probably spray you in the face. Remove that. Usually use a big straight screwdriver. Don't use the Phillips, it will strip it. You fill it until it starts coming out of the hole. Then you put the screw back in. You leave the lid off right here. You can fill it at that point all the way to the top. You don't want it too low. I'm going to show you how to initiate the bleed procedure. Okay, to initiate that, pretty much the same as the transmission initialization, but you're not going to hold it down as long. Without touching the brake, push the key in, push the button on, hold it down for 30 seconds. The transmission initialization, you hold it down for 1 minute. This one is 30 seconds. So hold to the floor. We'll go ahead and do it. You're going to hear the water pump turn on, and I'll show you what it's going to do. Okay, one more thing, make sure your heater is on whenever you do this. And this car, you actually can't hear it. Most of them you can hear the pump. If you look down in here, I don't know if you can see that or not, it's going to cycle off and on. There it is. And it's going to shoot a stream of water out of this small hose when the pump's running. You're gonna let that run until it stops. It could take up to 30 minutes for it to run all its cycles. If you have the system open, you're gonna be able to hear that a lot more. It's gonna have air bubbles coming out of it. But that's it. That's the bleed procedure for the BMW E90. Okay, everyone, that's all for this video. Hopefully this helped you guys out just a little bit. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We do a lot of work on E90s, E46, E39, and so on. That's it. Have a good day.